Muy buenas noches, mis queridos amigos, y le doy la bienvenida al primer WIMA Special de este año. Estamos transmitiendo de nuestro nuevo estudio en San Telmo, el Bronx Studio, y está con nosotros un invitado muy especial, traído por el Detroit Techno Heroes. Va a estar presentándose en Privilege este sábado. Viene de presentarse en Bahrein en el ciclo Submerge el miércoles aquí en la ciudad de Buenos Aires, y va a estar hablando con nosotros antes de su set de 2 horas. De Toronto, Canada, Greg Gow. Greg, welcome to Buenos Aires. Thank you very much for being here. How are you doing?
Awesome, man. This place is incredible, and the first time here, and definitely want to come back.
Excellent. As you said, this is your first time in Buenos Aires. It's going to be you have 2 gigs. You were in Submerge in Bahrain on Wednesday. You're going to be in Privilege in Mar del Plata on Saturday. How was your impression of the Argentine crowd so far?
It's really cool. It's really underground, which is really nice to see. And Bahrain was a raw space and very fun and dark and dirty and fun to play at.
You said that it's very underground. Can you compare that a little bit to the scene in Toronto? I know that you guys had a huge underground scene, and then it kind of like went the other way in some aspects.
Well, there's a couple clubs that are keeping things underground, but a lot of the bigger clubs have gone very commercial. EDM, unfortunately, is taken over North America, and that along with the major clubs. But there are a couple spots that are keeping it real.
Okay. Now, I want to take a little bit of a look back. I'm sure that the road has taken a lot of unexpected turns for you over the years. If you got into DJing when you first got the decks, it was about hip hop. When you were back in college, you derived into house music, and then you one day you discovered Detroit techno, and nowadays a lot of people, you're one of the most respected and prominent DJs and producers of techno in Toronto, Canada. If you had to look back at those days, when you were spinning one of those parties in Western College, did you ever think that your life was going to take that path?
Absolutely not. You know, it was just really the love of music and following it and trying to find out more about it. And it just sort of kept going, you know, and I'm passionate about it. And the day that I'm not passionate about it, it's over. So it's pretty incredible, you know, to follow something like that and keep doing it now.
A lot of people they refer to you, when they talk about you, they mention Detroit techno, and of course Toronto is not in Detroit, but there certainly has been a closeness in between the two cities when it comes to the music. How do you see that closeness, and do you think it has evolved? They have evolved differently over the years.
Well, first of all, like Toronto's about 3 hours from Detroit, so my whole exposure to it, I actually had friends going to university there, and they were like, "Come down to these parties, you got to check it out." And so I went down there, went to the party, saw guys like Rob Hood, Claude Young, Derek May, and once I heard those guys play, it was clear that I was into that sound and that I wanted to go that direction. Now, being from Toronto, yes, I have a slightly different take on things, but definitely the passion and the soul and the feeling of the music I've definitely taken from Detroit.
You mentioned a little bit before about EDM taking over North America. I know that you perceive Canada and the US as a common ground. You know, you usually talk about the North American music scene. Do you feel like maybe EDM has taken such an important part of the spotlight in the US that maybe the artists from Toronto or from the rest of Canada have a chance to emerge more in the underground, or with techno and house?
Well, I think, like anything, if EDM does one thing, an underground scene is going to form and other things are going to pop up. So definitely things are going to mutate off of it. But it's a shame to see so many young people getting exposed to such bad music. And that's why I hope that our underground scene keeps growing and gets to where it once was, So it's hard to say what's going to happen, but at least like Montreal has a couple really good spots. Each city has a couple places that present an alternative, and it's just getting the music out there to those people and making sure that there is another option.
You talked about kids. You mentioned kids. You say getting exposed to this kind of music. Back in the day, I think that people used to be older when they got into the scene. Back in the 80s and 90s, maybe it was more grown-ups that kind of got into the scene. Nowadays, kids start digging electronic music from they're really young.
Well, I think that there's other factors too, though. Like when the electronic scene hit Canada, especially in the mid '90s, you could do parties everywhere you wanted. Things were not controlled at all, like we were talking about earlier. And now, because of those things, things are very controlled. Certain clubs only, certain times you can do them. You have to pay extraordinary amounts of money to security, to the police, things like that. And all these things weigh in on promoters, and it unfortunately discourages people who have good ideas and good taste in music, like there's a couple groups. There's one in Toronto called Platform that work with a club called Coda, and they're doing parties at the Island. They just brought in Sven Vaith it was about a month ago, and then they have Dixon coming up, and Henrik Schwartz, and so they're doing some good things. But there's still other major clubs that could do much more than they do, and they don't. So.
Talking about Detroit techno, of course, Detroit techno has been used to describe a specific genre of techno, even though after techno is believed to have originated in the mid 80s in Detroit. But for the last 2 decades, since the 90s, Detroit techno has been used kind of as a genre in itself. And do you believe that what nowadays it's called Detroit techno has a close resemblance to the original sounds that gave birth to a sort of a nation of sorts 30 years ago?
I think elements of it do. I think the problem is that everybody's definition of it is different. And that's even what you might think is tech house is different than what I think is tech house. So I sort of more make it very simple. It's either good or bad music. Simple as that. And in terms of the Detroit sounds, definitely you would hear things influence some of the sounds, and then some tracks would sound more like old Detroit records, but there's definitely sort of a newer school Detroit coming up. Kevin's doing a lot of things with KMS right now. He's been putting out a lot of people's music, and he's really trying to, push the label forward. And he's coming up with this Origins concept where he's bridging old KMS artists, new people, and sort of mid-level artists, and putting them all together and trying to show that, Detroit techno is quite a wide range in sound. So to answer your question, there are some tracks, but there's definitely a wider scope, I'd say, on what people call Detroit now.
And do you think, you said that they sound similar. It was also quite a cultural movement. The whole culture of raves, not just raves, but the attitude of people. Do you think that stays the same, or that it has changed over the years?
In the U.S. or?
In the U.S. in general?
I think that, again, it's sort of, it's evolving around what people get exposed to. You do have underground radio stations, internet stations that people listen to all over the world, and some do come from Canada, but, we don't have anything on mainstream radio which you would consider quality music. You have certain stations, college stations are actually the best late at night on the weekends, but they only give them blocks of like 2 to 3 hours. So, there are avenues to get music out there, but you have to really dig. It's not right in your face.
Now let's talk a little bit about your label, Restructured. Correct. You started the label from the ground up in 2001. I'm sure it must have been a tough road, but at the same time a rewarding one. Would you say that running your own label is something that any DJ should aspire to, considering that as DJ and a label manager, there's similitudes in the attributes that you have to have. You're both music curators in a way.
I have 2 words: fucking headache. No, you know what? It's a lot of fun to run the label, but once you've got the music and got your artists beyond it, the rest of it, especially before when we're producing a lot of vinyl records, it was very frustrating. Just dealing with distributors trying to get your money back and all the logistics of, you know, records getting shipped somewhere and lost and paying VAT taxes and things that you never thought about when you'd be running a label. But now with the technology changing, MP3s, at least that side of it is a bit easier, but then you spend more time on promotion and other things. I really enjoy running the label because of, beside the headache parts, just because you can get new artists involved in something, you know, and it's great when you get demos from people and you've never heard of them and the music's amazing, you know, and that's why you do it, you know. And I've tried to sort of like restructure it. It is based off of Detroit, but it's also got sort of elements of the sounds of house and other things that I've been inspired through New York and as I was growing up.
Well, you've certainly been accepted, kind of adopted, you could say, into the Detroit techno family. You know, you started with Derek May in 2009. Now you're working closely with Kevin Sanderson. As someone who got into it, you know, as a much younger person, when you look back now, how does it feel, that whole process of being accepted, of being one of the guys that you used to admire?
Just simply amazing, you know, like the fact that I, you know, was able to do those things and hang out with Derek and Kevin and, you know, even get to know Carl is phenomenal. And, you know, those were my heroes and they still are. And it's an honor to work with them.
That's amazing. And well, tell us a little bit. You're here. Part of the reason you're here in Argentina, and I was just playing, you're also promoting a new release that is coming up out in KMS, correct? That it's three ways to skin a cat, correctly?
Yeah, 3 ways to skin a cat. It came out actually about a month ago, just about a week before Movement, and you know, it was really cool. I just sent the tracks to Kevin. You know, we did one EP about a year ago, and he said he wanted to do a follow-up, so I sent him this stuff, and he was really into it. And I had the concept of having one track, but with slightly different changes. So hence 3 ways to skin a cat. And he was just really behind it, and it's gotten great feedback from people, and it's definitely it's very different than the stuff that I did for Transmat. A lot more techno-oriented, pretty raw sounding, but still with elements definitely from Detroit.
Which way of expressing yourself do you find that gives you the more freedom, when you're producing or when you're DJing?
It's hard to say, you know, because like I think probably DJing, you know, I've done it longer, and I pull from a lot of different things. Even though I'm known mostly for techno, I love deep house and you know, just music in general. So I always try and pull as many things into a set as I can, and I do that in the studio as well. But I'd say DJing definitely more.
All right, Greg, I want to thank you very much for being here with us. We're looking forward to your set that's coming now, and best of luck in Mar del Plata. You're going to be playing on Saturday in Mar del Plata, right? In Privilege. Excellent. Do you know what time are you going to be playing?
Not sure. We'll figure it out tomorrow.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Greg. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Y a todos ustedes les recordamos que lo pueden ver a Greg Gow este sábado en Privilege, traído por la gente de Detroit Techno Heroes. Esto es una nueva propuesta de giras por Sudamérica, en los cuales Beautiful Techno, la agencia en la que están Juan Atkins y DJ Pierre, van a estar trayendo DJs del techno de Detroit para que todos ustedes los puedan escuchar en toda Sudamérica. Con esto nos despedimos y lo dejamos con la mejor música de Buenos Aires, como siempre en We Must. Escucha tu camino.